we're going to continue the Daily Diamond today with a team that I don't know if is going to be better than what they're letting on to be. That's going to begin in the nation's capital with today's edition of the Daily Diamond. Jensen, you know I'm a diehard Metropolitan fan. That will never change. But I did cover this team from its existence in Washington, D.C., the very first ever with Frank Robinson and Ryan Zimmerman and those guys. And there's a special place in your heart when you cover teams from their inception. They've gone on to win a World Series. So it's not that the cupboard's been bare since they've been around now for about 20 years, right? But this iteration of the Washington Nationals, is there anything that my D.C. brethren can get excited about this year?
Excitement is going to have to be qualified. Are there a couple of guys you want to go to the ballpark and watch on a day in and day out basis? Sure. Are you going to go to Nationals Park and see a lot of wins for the home team? Probably not. The old adage is why they play the games, but this is a team that is going to leave a lot to be desired, at least on paper. Now, let's start at the beginning here. Maybe one of the most eyebrow-raising hires of the offseason was new manager Blake Butera, who, Dave, if you remember what you were doing when you were 33 years old, I certainly do. I was starting to cut my teeth on the media side here as a pre- and post-game host. Well, Blake Butera is your new manager for the Washington Nationals, youngest since 1972. And again, has had some experience in the minor leagues for 4 seasons. It's a full revamp, though. You remember Mike Rizzo, who had been the architect there as the general manager and president of baseball ops for many years. Well, now enter Paul Taboni and freshly installed GM Ani Kilambi, who also will focus on improving the player development. Now, Kilambi comes from the Phillies front office, and so he is well-versed in what it takes to not only build a championship pedigree team, but to sustain it. And I think that's probably the idea behind Nationals ownership is, we have pieces that we like, and those begin on the position player side, Dave. You have the all-star and face of the franchise right now in James Wood, was phenomenal in the home run derby this past year at the Midsummer Classic. Dylan Cruz, one of their top draft picks, if you remember the second pick overall in 2023, should be firmly in the middle of the lineup there, and your starting right fielder. And then their young phenom in C.J. Abrams, who has had some off-the-field things to deal with. He's had some lackadaisical nature defensively at times, but that's basically your big three. And then you've had some breakout candidates. Luis Garcia Jr., their first baseman, and Daylen Lile is probably the guy that I'd focus in on, who really broke out in a big way last year. He'll be your starting left fielder and someone I think if you look at the top 5 in the Nats lineup, that's where you start to kind of feel like, all right, we've got a nice young foundation we can build around. Now we get to the question marks. And I know a lot of these questions for these teams that are not going to have a lot of success this year, it's going to be starting pitching that just doesn't miss a lot of bats. Opening day starter Cade Cavalli is a guy that you could probably start to sink your teeth into. Foster Griffin, who is a free agent, he's going to be 31 this year, coming over from the NPB. They do sign Miles Mikolas. You remember him from his days in St. Louis. And then Zack Littell, they just signed here a handful of days ago. He had finished the year with Cincinnati last year. He will round out the Nats rotation. Dave, I don't know what to expect from a run prevention standpoint, and I say that because it was the worst rotation in baseball statistically last year. It was one of the worst bullpens, if not the worst, in all of baseball, and they lose their best player in trading Mackenzie Gore to the Texas Rangers. Now, they did get a decent haul coming back as far as prospect capital, but you and I have watched enough baseball to know it's not the immediate impact talent this year. It is definitely more geared to try and bolster this group as early as maybe next year or into 2028. So some growing pains for sure, not only from first-year manager Blake Butera, but I think a lot of issues in the run prevention department for the Washington Nationals in 2026.
Yeah, you mentioned, Mike Rizzo, the old GM there, worked closely with him when I was there in Washington, D.C. You have an affinity for that guy. He's a baseball guy. You say baseball men sometime around certain people. That was the feel you get with Mike Rizzo. Maybe it was time for a new shakeup to try to do it a different way than they did it. You mentioned with C.J. Abrams and Mackenzie Gore, those guys came over in the Juan Soto deal. back when Juan Soto was a member of the Nationals, and now you've already moved on from one of that key piece of that deal in Mackenzie Gore. So I guess my question, Jensen, is now with the new leadership group here, and we're going youth, right? We're going youth in the front office. We're going youth as the manager. Is that now the way the Nationals are going to operate, is that we will be that team that's got to trade away, quote unquote, our best player, in this iteration being Mackenzie Gore, and get younger and hope those prospects pan out like they did in the Juan Soto deal, only then to move those very guys years down the road and keep kind of doing this perpetual cycle?
I don't think it will be that perpetual cycle, Dave, and I would qualify Mackenzie Gore as a unique circumstance. I don't think they were planning on extending him, and kind of knowing that there was a little disconnect between the previous front office and Gore, and then obviously with this new regime coming in, they really wanted to put their hands into the muck here and really mold this club in their own identity. Couple of prospects, because we'll probably see some young pups here, whether it be in July or maybe in the second half. They got a youngster at third baseman in Brady House, who is probably still going to try and challenge for an opening day spot. But I wouldn't be surprised if he finds his way into our nation's capital at some point here in 2026 in earnest. Jarlin Susana is a guy that is that final. You mentioned the Juan Soto trade. He was the last piece of the puzzle in that 2022 deal. Dave, this guy throws absolute missiles. I mean, it is 100 plus. It is fury. He has got to harness the command a little bit. But if you're looking for maybe that ace apparent in maybe the next handful of years, that's the guy for me I would watch on the pitching side. AA, AAA, we'll see how far he goes up the ladder this year. And also Travis Sikora is the third rounder in 2023. Had Tommy John surgery in late August last year, so we'll check his rehab timeline. Those are a couple of the big prospects you want to keep your eye on. But as I said, this will be a unique year. This is a growing year. This is a player development year. I would not be shocked. I know you've asked me many times about some teams and if they get to the deadline, would they be willing to listen? C.J. Abrams would be the piece that I think that the Nats would certainly listen to under this new regime. You're always looking for athletic middle infielders. He's a guy that does show a little bit of pop. He can hit 20 homers, but he can steal a bunch of bags. He can definitely be a 30-plus stolen bag guy. So if you're looking for a name that would be on the market, I would identify him before the year. And if the Nats go off to, their predicted slow start, you may see this regime start to listen sooner than later.
What am I missing in this win total at 65.5? I have not played it, but if I were to play it, I could only play the under here, Jensen, right? Like, how do you get beat with 66 or more wins? All the kids gel together this quickly?
My bold take for the VSiN MLB betting guide, Dave, the Nationals challenge for the worst record in the regular season in 2026. It's not the Rockies I'm looking at. I believe Will Hill has a play on most regular season losses on the Nationals at a pretty nice number. So that would be an under in every sense of that 65.5 win total, and shop around for your best price, most regular season losses for the Nats.
Very quickly, and I'm going to go back and show my age here, but after those early days there, with the euphoria of having a team back in D.C. wore off, they went and made a move to get a guy named Alfonso Soriano back in the day, and he became the guy that you wanted to go to the park, even though they were a bad team, to watch him play baseball. If you had to pick a young gun, a position player that you said, I would pay to go to D.C. and sit in Nats Park and watch this guy play, who would that position player be?
It's James Wood, and you pull at the heartstrings. My former teammate Alfonso Soriano, my last year in 2013 with the Cubs. Dave, I picked up I feel like it was literally chopping down a tree in the redwood forest. That's how heavy his bat was. At 42, 45 ounces, James Wood, worth the price of admission, every single penny.